Hello, everyone. Welcome to another podcast with Talk2Rami. This is Rami, and it's an exciting day today because I have Chad Wright in the house. He's a hardcore entrepreneur and marketer, coach, and name it, and he's got an interesting story. We're gonna talk to Chad and learn from him. You should learn too. Chad, welcome.
Thank you, man. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you so much for, I know we were planning this for kind of back and forth to get you here, but thank you for being here. I know it's early in the morning, but
we've already had a great discussion. I feel like we've already recorded a podcast. We just didn't hit record yet.
What is Chad's story? Who you are, how you get to where you are at.
Oh man, I don't know that my story is particularly interesting, but I've always loved the idea of building businesses, and I've always just been fascinated by that. Even as a kid, when I collected comic books and baseball cards, I'm like, I should open a comic book shop one day. And I've always loved that idea. And so I've built a business over the years, and man, through all that journey of building a business, you know how hard it is.
Yep.
It is
Very
just
hard.
a series of getting kicked in the teeth every day over and over and over again. And so I did that for a long time. We spent 15 years in the branding business, but through that time dealt with so much burnout and so much just bad leadership on my part, not leading myself well, not leading my teams well. And that kind of set us on this weird journey to create Forward Partners, our current company, where we equip leaders. We equip leaders for healthy leadership, to defeat burnout, to build thriving teams. And so everything we do now really comes out of how did I do this really badly for a lot of years, and just learned the pain that comes from burnout, the pain that comes from bad leadership, and also then see the impact good leadership can have. What can healthy leaders do? Man, they can show up and change the whole world. And now we're kind of on a quest to equip people across all kinds of industries to be able to show up as leaders. And I love that journey of just learning as we go and figuring out how to do this really badly, and then figuring out how to help other people avoid those potholes. And how do they go on a journey where they're able to thrive and not deal with all the things I dealt with over the years? Because burnout, man, if you've ever been there, it's tough. And I almost lost everything over it. Almost lost my business, my health, my family, because it's funny how we get trapped in this cycle of, I'm working 90 hours a week for my family. And my family's sitting there going, we don't want you to work 90 hours a week. Like, we're happy with what we have. And so that kind of journey is tough, but you learn a lot from that. You learn hopefully how to get out of that cycle. And that's it. In very brief, there's 42 years in like 30 seconds. that's the story.
That's amazing. But I'm so happy you mentioned that, because as you know, I have seen organization to reach the highest, the good leadership, and actually went down and crash and burn because of the bad leadership.
Yes.
And what is as your experience that you deal with a lot of leader and coach them, what is the a main thing? I know a lot of stuff involved. What is the core of it? What is that?
I think most of it is people are never taught how to lead. They're usually somebody's good at something. They're good at making a widget, right? So now we're going to put you in charge of 10 humans who make widgets. Making a widget and leading a human being are two entirely different things. Those are different skill sets, different ways of approaching things. Your job is different, and yet they're just thrown in. Just jump into this thing that you've never done before and learn. The problem is, as you're learning, you're making tons of mistakes, and you're just draining life from the people around you. And so we just get trapped immediately in this cycle of I'm asked to do something I don't know how to do. And so I'm just going to do the best I can, and we'll see what happens. And when you're leading people, it is a very specific skill set. And they get trapped trying to perform, and then they don't lead themselves well. And now we're off to the races, where you've got an unhealthy leader who just continually gets more unhealthy and drains more life, and it creates all these problems within organizations. Unhealthy leadership will cost everything, because I genuinely believe the single most important factor for success is the health of whoever's in charge. If the leaders within that organization are healthy, you can do anything. If they're unhealthy, you can't do anything.
And do you think most of the leaders are open to suggestion, or hey, you have a very unhealthy leadership system going on. But
It depends on where they're at. Some of them are not in a place. Some of them are in such an unhealthy place that they're not ready to hear that. They're not like it really is. It's funny. I was thinking about this the other day with somebody. We were having this discussion where it's a lot like people addicted to drugs, people addicted to alcohol.
the same thing.
They
Yeah.
almost have to hit rock bottom. They have to go, man, I need to do something better. Because when you think about this, healthy leadership is not what we think it is. We love the idea of healthy leadership being, yeah, I'm going to stand in front and take all the arrows and I'm going to point the way up the mountain and we got this, That's not really what healthy leadership looks like. Healthy leadership looks like I'm going to model rest. I'm going to model empathy. I'm going to make sure I'm caring for my team. And it's all these different skill sets that are not forward, hard charging. Like there are times we need to be hard charging, but that's got to come from something. And it's got to come from this well of, I've been taking care of myself. I've been taking care of my people. We're ready to charge up that mountain. And if we don't have that well, we're just drawing from nothing. We're drawing from an empty tank. And so really healthy leadership looks like learning how to rest.
Yeah, I like when Simon Sinek said that leadership, I'm sure you heard that. He always says that leadership is not about the title and the rank and the things. It's about that creating that safety zone
Yes.
that people can come to you
Yeah.
and interact with you, learn from you, you learn from them, then you can take the whole organization to the next level.
Yeah.
In my career, I work in a couple of corporations. Most of the leaders, they not even open, even though they know their weaknesses, they know they need help. And I always say that 3 words that alcoholic people, they can say to get them out of that situation is, I need help.
Yeah.
If you can say that, then everything will be okay. Like sometimes in my business, I ask my people, they're young fellows, and I ask them, how can I do this?
Yeah.
And they just look at me, what? I said, yeah, I don't know it.
Yeah.
I don't know what I don't know.
Yes.
And it makes them feel better. And I learn something. I learn every day from my people.
Yeah.
And I always say that everything in my business is 100% of my fault, good or bad. And I have to learn. If I don't learn, I don't grow. And I can learn from anybody, maybe 5 years old, maybe 90-year-old.
The phrase you said of I don't know. I love I don't know. I love I don't have it all figured out. Like there has to be, when you talk healthy leadership, there has to be a level of vulnerability there.
Absolutely.
People don't need us to just show up and pretend there's no problems. We think optimism is, oh, it's not a big deal. We got this.
Yeah.
That's bullshit.
Yeah.
Optimism. I should have asked if we can curse on this.
Oh, yeah.
Optimism.
You're good.
Okay,
man.
good deal. Optimism really is, it's got to be realistic. It's got to be rooted in something. And so we try to teach people how to be realistically optimistic. And that really is a combination of determination and vulnerability. And you have to have the vulnerability when your team sees this mountain of challenges over here. It is not helpful to walk in and go, oh, there's no challenges. It is helpful to walk in and go, yeah, I see them too. And that scares the hell out of me. I don't know how we're going to overcome all that, but we're going to overcome all that.
When
we are going to figure it out.
During the COVID, you know it. Every business panic, and so many business they went out of business, and we were just thinking. I was personally thinking, okay, shit, I never faced such. I faced 9/11 during my past career, and I got out of it. But this is COVID. What we're gonna do? And I had to bring it up to my staff and say, guys, if we don't do certain things, we're gonna go out.
Yes.
And then they were so open with me. And then next week, I never forget, the week after they came, they said, we're going to go for 2 months without no pay. Let's work together. And I had tears in my eyes, be honest with you, that I didn't ask them to do that.
Yeah.
But they said, because you asked for help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, it was so touching that they came here to help me to get me out of that. And that moment, I figured out that I am nobody without my people.
Yeah. People, they need us to be vulnerable. They don't need us to be perfect. They don't need us to pretend we don't experience pain, because they know we experience pain. They know we're human. And a good example of this, and this is kind of ingrained into us, I think really early in life, this need to be perfect, this need to have it all figured out. And my middle son, he was in marching band in high school. And so when he was, I think, a junior, he got into leadership. He kind of earned that rank. And normally in leadership, they give you like 10 teenagers that you're in charge of. You're in charge of making sure they know their music, that they're there on time, that they show up with all their the hats and the goofy little fluffy thing on the front, like their whole uniform, all of it. I wouldn't want to be in charge of 10 teenagers to do that. Well, they put him over 3 sections. And so he had almost 40 teenagers that he was in charge of leading. And the first day going in, he goes, "Okay, Dad." He was super nervous. He goes, "What's the one thing I need to know about leadership? I've got to lead these people." And I said, "You're not going to like it, but the one thing you need to know is they don't need you to be Superman." And he looked me in the eye and he goes, "Dad, I absolutely have to be Superman." And I said, "Well, what do you mean by that?" He said, "I have to be perfect." He said, "I can't feel pain. I can't show them that I'm scared. I have to know what to do every single moment." I said, "Here's the problem. Nobody trusts Superman. He's an asshole. We can't identify with him. He's invulnerable. He flies above everything." I said, "What they need you to be is Captain America." And he goes, "Okay, what do you mean by that?" And I said, "What does Captain America do a lot?" He goes, "Well, he gets his ass kicked a lot." I said, "Exactly. He gets his ass kicked all the time." "Then what does he do?" He said, "Well, he gets back up." I said, "That's all your people need from you. They need to trust that you are going to get back up, be right there beside them, and shoulder to shoulder, we're going to go figure this out." That's all they need. They don't need perfection. And yet we have this idea rooted very early that I got this. I don't need other people. I have the sheer force of will to make things happen myself. We need other people. We are designed to need them. And the more we can be vulnerable with them, the more they are going to genuinely follow exactly what you saw. You showed some devastating vulnerability. That's hard to do.
It was very hard, trust me.
Yeah, and their response though is exactly what we're looking for.
Until
Hey,
today,
we are
I
a
can't believe
team.
it. They did that.
Yeah,
It was just so amazing because, I was very vulnerable, and I said, if I don't say it,
yeah.
I don't know what else to do. Like really,
Because otherwise you're lying to them at that point,
yeah.
right? And that's the thing. When we show up and feel like we have to be perfect, we are lying to everyone around us. And nothing good starts with a lie, right? Healthy leadership does not come from this lie that we're perfect, that we got it all figured out.
And the most of the leaders, you said they not going to show vulnerability. And
Yeah.
do you think that comes from self awareness, like they don't know themselves, or how they get to that point? Like,
Some of it is, I think, societal expectations. Like from the first time we show up at school, we are taught that we need to be something that we're not. We need to be this version of ourselves in order to, in my case, not get beat up on the playground as a kindergartner, right? And so we're taught these things very, very early in life due to kind of the wounds and the trauma we experience as kids. But I think really a lot of it comes down to then we're never taught the value of vulnerability. We're not taught what we're missing, the cost of pretending we have it all figured
the
out.
sign of weakness.
Yeah, that's it. That's what most people see it as, is a sign of weakness. But ultimately, strength is not having it all figured out. It's not having all the answers. It's being the person that says, "I don't have all the answers, but I will figure them out." And together we're going to do that. That's really what our people need. But this requires a healthy version of every one of us. Because when we're less than healthy, when we're just an average version of us, I think we get out of bed and we put on a mask because we're not comfortable with who we are. One of the things we do when we work with organizations that has the biggest impact, we walk them through personality assessments. We use a combination of Enneagram and Strengths Finder. And the beauty of that is they see themselves, sometimes for the first time, they see what's possible. They see, man, here's who I am. Here's the good. Here's the bad. How can I lean into the good? How can I show up as the best version of me? And the more we're comfortable with who we are, the more we can be vulnerable and say, yeah, here's my lane. Here's the things I'm really good at. Here's the things I'm not. And that becomes incredibly helpful because then we're able to kind of find alignment between that healthiest version of ourselves and the lanes we choose to run in. And that becomes so helpful to be vulnerable in that scenario because now you're just comfortable with who you are. That we are all this combination of flaws and talents and all good things and bad things. And once we accept that, we're okay with that.
And sometimes I think the ego gets in the way too. Like,
100%.
I have seen leaders that I say, why you don't admit it? Just you need really help.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you're weak, a weak leader.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you're a weak person. That doesn't mean that you are a bad person. It's just said, no, I'm running this corporation and I got it. I said, no, it doesn't work that way right now.
No one has it.
You got to, you got to admit for what you're not good at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if you feel like you've got it all the time, you're never growing. You're never challenging yourself. You're not trying new things. I was actually listening to a podcast this morning by Adam Grant. He was talking about this idea of I think he said he had a failure quota where a certain number of times a year he wants a project, a new speech, a new idea, something to just completely fail, fall on its face. And he said, if I get to the end of the year and I'm not seeing that failure, it means I'm not trying new things. I'm just doing what I'm comfortable with, which means I'm not growing. And I loved that idea because failure is ultimately vital. It is key. Like failure to me is like your next essential step towards success. And if we're not willing to fail, we're not actually going to find success. We're just going to kind of stay trapped in the story that we can't fail. And we've got to, as leaders, part of this is that vulnerability helps create an environment where it's okay to fail. It's okay to make mistakes. As long as we're learning from it, let's make some mistakes. Let's screw something up.
I always say that, and I totally agree with you that failure is not the end of the world. Failure is something like you tried something, didn't work.
Yes.
How can I make it better? It's not like so devastating that, oh, my life is over, my business is over.
As long as we're learning, we're good.
I fail every day, trust me.
Yeah.
I got used to it.
And that's where vulnerability comes in, is being willing to tell our people that. Because if we say, hey, failure's okay, but then all we ever talk about is our own successes. We're saying one thing, but then our actions don't match. And so we also have to look at how we react to failure. One of the things you mentioned earlier was like you'll have a problem, you'll have a challenge, and the leader just kind of blows up, right? And one of the number one things we try to get leaders to understand, and again, this requires health, is your number one response to everything should be steadiness. People should know they can bring you anything, any problem, even problems you're creating. They can bring them to you, and your response is going to be steady. You're not going to blow up at them, because the minute that happens, guess what? They're never bringing you a problem again.
Before that, don't you think they have to create that safety zone?
They do. Yes.
Before even somebody comes to them and talk about it, hey, this is my problem. They have to create that safety, as you mentioned, that people, they are comfortable to going to chat.
Well, and also I don't know that it's even just creating a safety zone. It's going and bringing safety to other people. Rather than waiting for them to bring you the problem, connecting and engaging with your people so often that they're just used to it. They're comfortable with it. I work with your wife, and so we do a lot of work in the law enforcement space. And one of the number one things I'm working on chiefs and command level people to do is say, okay, how are you engaged with every single shift, every part of the department, to know every one of them sees you once a month for at least 30 minutes. And some of them have 10, 12, 15 shifts that they've got to get to know. So that's a lot of time.
That's a lot of time.
And so we intentionally schedule it out. And I always tell them, the goal is not that the first time you walk in there, you have great conversations with everyone, because this can be awkward as hell. You're going to walk in, everybody's going to shut up. And despite the fact that all they do is complain the chief is never there, as soon as the chief shows up, they're just going to shut up and never say a word.
Exactly.
The goal is that a year from now, y'all are having great conversations, that you walk in and they're so comfortable seeing you there that they can bring you anything. And that's what we should all aspire to as leaders, is we go out and we create those conversations. We don't just wait for people to bring them to us, because I think open door policies are absolute bullshit. And I think it's laziness, just sitting in your office.
You said that about the communicating. I think that communication is a big part, that go to them and acknowledge their existence.
Yes.
You have to acknowledge the people's existence. And I know I haven't in touch with you but I know you're working hard. I know there's anything I can help you with. There's anything that I should know that you not going to tell me, or you think that I cannot help you. As you said, you start that conversation by showing up. That's going to happen when you show up.
Yep.
And not going to happen by email. You got to show up. And when you show up, they start opening up to do I think even the not very qualified person in the organization will open up to do, and then you can solve a lot of stuff.
100% you can. Because by having presence, by being there and being engaged, you start to earn influence. You start to earn trust. We assume that Simon Sinek thing you gave earlier of leadership is not just a title, right? We get the title and we assume now I have influence. And then we start leading as though we have influence, and yet we don't. And so everything we do is falling on deaf ears. It's not really having an impact on the organization, because we're going, I have the title now, do these things. And everybody's going, who are you again? Why are we doing these things? Like, do we really need to do these things? Versus going out and engaging and earning that influence, so that when you say, hey, we're going to go do this, they believe you and they're bought in and they're excited about it because they trust you. That only happens through engagement, and that only happens through presence. Like you said, it's not an email thing. It is not. We cannot lead via email. Email is one of the. It's a great creation, sure. It's also terrible. It is so bad for communication because everybody communicates in very different ways, and we miss that all the time via email. Text is not any better, right? But doing this, we can connect.
I have a model that I've been using for myself, but I start teaching that to organization, entrepreneur, solopreneur.
Yeah.
And I call it CEO, like a CEO. And I say connect, educate, offer.
Yeah.
Because as you exactly said, when you connect with the people, you show up and you connect and you start educating yourself about their needs, about yourself.
Yeah.
And they can educate themselves about you. Then you can give them an offer. How can I assist you?
Yes.
How can I be your friend? How can I give you a better solution?
Yeah.
And the problem is, I think everybody go from like, hey, I got this is a solution is going to solve. You don't even know the guy.
Yeah.
You don't even know what are the problems. As this human level, you got to connect with them. And after that, everything is going to be okay. And it doesn't matter what is your rank or title. I think, as you mentioned, that connecting and engaging, that's the most important part.
Otherwise, there's a huge disconnect. What's really funny is part of my value is I come in from the outside to organizations and I walk throughout the levels, everything from the person at the top all the way to the person at the bottom. And I love going between those ranks because here's what I find. No matter what type of organization, whether it's law enforcement, an entire city, a business, a startup, whatever it is, what I almost always hear at the bottom level is leadership doesn't care about me. And then I go up to leadership and they're like, we love our people. And they genuinely do. Like, they're not just saying that. So there's a very real disconnect where I don't feel love. There's a big disconnect. And the way I described it to somebody the other day, actually, I think it was in a command staff meeting with your wife and her team there. We were talking about this idea of the organization being a body. And leadership engagement is ultimately the blood flow. And so if you've got an arm of your organization over here, if you're a leader and you never engage, that blood flow dies. I want to steal that from you. Yeah, feel free. Yes, knock yourself out because I'm sure I probably heard it somewhere. But if you as a leader don't go engage, then that arm starts to atrophy, and then it starts to become less effective. Ultimately, it dies. And so, as as leaders, we always have to be going throughout the organization and connecting with people. It is the most important work we do because in that we discover problems. In that we inspire people. We inspire vision. We get them excited to make sure everybody understands where we're going.
Because if you don't connect, you don't know what is the problem.
Yes, 100%.
As you said, if the blood flow stops, and you don't know, you got to know the body.
Yes,
where you have it like a blockage or something.
Yeah, you have to understand that. And the problem is that's one of those things. Before we started recording, we were talking about the idea that the real important leadership stuff doesn't really land on a task list. That's one of those things where like, oh, yeah, that's super important. Got to engage with my people. And then you look at the day and it's like, I have 73 meetings today. So when am I really going to engage? And we don't intentionally create space for it. And so really the exercise involves a lot of intentionality of saying, is this my most important work? And if it is, where does it land on my calendar before everything else? And when I start working with executives at the highest level, they're busy. They got a lot going on. We look out a month or two to where they're not as busy, right? If you look out, like right now we're sitting in the end of August. If you look out to November, there's probably not a lot of stuff on your calendar at this point, right? So we look out that time and we say, okay, when is every single person, if it's a small company or every single division, going to see you in that month for at least 30 minutes, whatever it looks like? Chart that out, put that on your calendar. And now everything else in November flows around that. We're not going to wait and see if we have space to go engage with our people. We're going to create that space, and then we're going to go engage. Because if that is the most important, it should be the first thing on your calendar.
I have a friend. He's running a company with 235 employees, and I asked him how you engage. He said it's very easy. He puts some time to go see him if he can. Otherwise, he physically pick up the phone and for 2 minutes call that person. In their desk or whatever it is, they call him, hey, by the way, this is John. I just want to tell you that, we might see each other soon, but if I don't, but I just want to know that there's anything I can help you.
Yeah.
And I said, how you manage your time? He said, okay, 235 people. If I do 5 minutes a day, just pick up. He was right. When you calculate it, he's got the time. It's just, as you
Yes.
said, it's just organizing it.
It is. It's being intentional about it. And sometimes you reach a scale where like you're always having to evaluate how you're being intentional about it. At that scale that he's at, he can probably do that.
Yes.
But he can't do that much longer.
No, yes,
They
exactly.
can't get much bigger before he starts going, okay, how can I engage with groups of 10 people for 20 minutes at a
20
time?
minutes.
And start figuring that out, because that really is the hard part.
But there is a way to do it, right?
Oh, absolutely. There's always a way to do it. I don't care if you're leading an organization of 5,000 people. There is a way to do it. Between in-person stuff, technology, like shoot a 10-second video and send it to a person. Just say, hey, I care about you. Like little stuff that we just have to be intentional about.
I know your work, part of your work is helping people to find their purpose. I know you are very heavy on that.
Yes.
And how you help people to find your purpose, that's very interesting for me, because believe it or not, most of people, they don't have, they just going, like just driving. And how you help them, or what is the challenge? How you diagnose that?
You'll love this, because it really goes back to my 25 years in the marketing business. I learned how to write a headline that would convince people to buy things. And ultimately, when we talk about purpose, we're essentially saying a headline for your life. Why do you exist in one sentence? And the way we break that down, our formula is mission plus vision equals purpose. And so your mission is the practical things you do, you are uniquely designed to do to impact the people around you. The vision is, what does the world look like if I do that from now until the day I die incredibly well with a lot of intentionality? And so that becomes very simple. I'm going to get up and I'm going to do these things in service of this vision. So if I don't get anything else done today, how can I go impact people? And ultimately, it has to center on how you impact humans. It's not like if it's something you only do at work, you created a job description. That's not a purpose. It is, how do I move through this world to impact other people? And what we find is it drives a couple things. One is the will to get out of bed. Like, I think we all face a common point of failure every single morning where we have to decide to get out of bed. And there are days when you just don't want to.
Yeah.
But if you have that purpose, you probably had that this morning. You're like, God, I got to go talk to Chad.
Yeah.
But
no, I think it's too early.
You're not a morning person. But we need that. We need that purpose to get us out of bed and keep us rolling, keep us moving forward. But the other thing it does is, once we define that impact, once we define how we help other people, we suddenly start to see opportunities for it. Suddenly, life is not just about our success or our task list. It's about, how am I impacting other people? My personal purpose is I want to bring hope and clarity to every human I meet. I want them to have a little bit of hope that they're going to be okay. And I want to have a little clarity about what are the one or two next steps. And the vision is that if I can do that for the rest of my life, I can impact the lives of millions and millions of leaders.
You can, yes.
And so that becomes exciting for me. My week is not judged good or bad based on what happened in the business. My week is judged good or bad based on, did I have an impact? And what's funny is, once you define that impact, you start to see it.
That drives you.
Because it's funny how often when we start working with somebody and coaching them, we do a self-reflection exercise every single time. And one of the questions is, how have you impacted someone the last week, and how has someone impacted you? I'm amazed how often no one has an answer for how have you impacted someone. Despite living 7 days and interacting with probably hundreds, if not thousands of people, most leaders go through life and go, I don't know that I had an impact. The reality is they did. It was either good or bad. We're helping them choose to have a good impact. And that becomes this lens through which you view the world. You see a human, you go, ooh, I know how I'm meant to impact that human. And for everybody, it's different. Mine happens to be hope and clarity. For everybody else, it'll be two different things, right? And so that becomes how you then lead your team. I want my team to have hope and clarity. My clients, these dudes out here that are doing a phenomenal job, by the way, I want them to have some hope and clarity. And it can be as simple as the person checking out my groceries at H-E-B. I take a moment, because I have that purpose, I stick my phone in my pocket rather than sitting there surfing Twitter or whatever while they're checking out my groceries. And I engage with them. Hey, how are you doing? How's your day going? Do you love this job? I'm really curious about this job and what you do. And just that little moment of engagement, they kind of brighten up a little, because there's someone that cares about them and not just what they're doing for them. And in that conversation, I mean, I've had some deep conversations in the 2 minutes it takes them to check out my groceries about caring for themselves, about making sure they're leading themselves well, and give them a little clarity about what some of those one or two next steps are. Everything we do as an organization is called Forward Partners. And I have these little bracelets that say keep moving forward. And I think a lot of moving forward is just what are those one or two next steps? And if you can see that, you're likely to take them. And so that becomes my purpose. And it's a simple headline. It's one sentence that says, why do I exist? And I think we all need that. We've all got to figure that out because it does change everything. It truly does.
That's a very simple question, but it's hardest question to answer.
Yeah,
I can tell you that.
it is.
Like when I'm like, I know my purpose right now, but as you say, so be clear and so thing is really you got to give it some thought.
Yes. It's funny. We have an online course we created. It's 10 sessions about healthy leadership. Basically, it is how do you lead yourself well to defeat burnout and then lead others well. And we have all 10 sessions, and some of them are pretty simple and some of them are a little more complex. But right smack in the middle of session 5 and 6, and it is your core truths and guiding values and your mission, vision, and purpose. And it's funny how everybody like speeds through sessions 1 through 4. They're like, oh, this is great. I see how this tool is going to help. This is going to be amazing. And then they get to 5 and 6, and they're like, oh, this is going to take some work. And it really does. It takes a lot of work and a lot of deep thinking. But again, this is what leadership is. It is the deep stuff. It is not surface level. It is not titles. It is not a business card that says something
Finding
cool on
your
it.
own purpose that you can be able to lead others.
Yes. Because ultimately, when I look at an organization, my goal is that they are thriving. A thriving organization is not a healthy leader at the top and then some unhealthy people throughout. It is people that show up no matter what level you're at, no matter what your rank is, no matter what your title is. Everyone in that organization shows up as a healthy leader. They lead themselves well and they lead the people around them well. And if you think of your average org chart, right? You've got a person at the top, executive team, middle management, frontline, right? We've all seen that. The reality is if you take an unhealthy leader and you plug them in anywhere on that chart, they are draining life from everyone around them, above, below, beside. But you take a healthy leader and you plug them in on that chart, they are giving life to everyone around them. That's what we're ultimately after. That's how a team thrives. Your team here, if every one of them showed up healthy every day, leading themselves well, leading with intentionality, you could accomplish things you can't imagine.
Did you listen, guys?
And that starts with you, because as the leader goes, so everybody else goes.
Yes.
Because it really is, and it's on us to understand how much that matters. And the way we illustrate this, so you can kind of picture that org chart in your head, right?
Yeah.
Then I click a nice little button in the presentation, and the org chart flips over. And if you've ever looked at a org chart upside down, it's terrifying, especially if you're that person at the top. Because suddenly you see this weight that you have taken on,
It's
this
all on.
pyramid. It's all on you, and it's not a stable structure. It is all on your shoulders. And if you show up as unhealthy, everything starts to shift in a really unhealthy way. And suddenly your people are bearing a weight they are not meant to bear. It's funny, I've literally given this presentation a lot at this point, and I'll hit that button, flip the org chart over, and I've seen leaders burst into tears because they see in black and white the weight that they're bearing, and they're like, yeah, I can't keep doing this. That's that rock bottom of I need help.
But don't you think in any level of the org chart or organization, you still can find a leader in the leader?
Yeah.
Like any division, I'm sure, not the leading to the, but they can be leading. They can
Yes.
be. Have you seen that?
That's the other thing we really get into. It's funny. I gave a deal for City of Pflugerville the other day, and we were talking to people, none of them in supervisor role. Like they were everything from the guys who keep water flowing through the water lines to the men and women who mow the parks, right? And so those are frontline workers. And the whole thing we wanted them to understand is if we look at that org chart and there's a certain level where leadership kicks in, our organization is always going to be screwed. It just is. The way to really create something great is when every single person shows up as a leader. They lead themselves well. They lead themselves intentionally. Yep. They lead the people beside them. And when I talk about leadership, I mean they are giving life to the people around them. They lead up. They know how to challenge their leaders in a healthy way. They know how to really say, hey, we all say we value healthy leadership, and I think you're having a rough day because I'm not feeling it. Like they really get those tools to do that. And that's really what we're after is if you look at any org chart for any organization, every person leads.
Eventually, you're going to have a very healthy ecosystem. That's what I'm hearing.
It is. Because we can't all show up perfect every day. I'm going to have a bad day.
Yeah.
And when I have a bad day, I want to make sure my team is equipped with the tools to be able to challenge me in a healthy way, to be able to see that I'm having a rough day and go, hey, we got this. Don't worry. And that ability to communicate about those things matters a lot. When we define healthy leadership with this, the way we define it is every healthy leader is spiritually, emotionally, and physically oriented towards health. So they are pointed in the right direction. They may not be the peak of all of those. The example I always use is physical health. Like, I need to lose 40 pounds. I need to lose the same 40 pounds for a long time. If I wait until I lose those 40 pounds to say I'm now a healthy leader, we're never going to get there. But did I make choices this morning to orient myself towards physical health? Yes. I got up at 5 this morning. I went for a walk for 3 miles. I made sure I'm doing the things physically to point myself towards health.
Yeah,
So that
I did
can
that
show
for
up and be me.
75 days walking.
So did you do 75 hard? with
Yeah, I
Darlene?
was just doing the everyday walking with her. Well, I didn't do the rest.
She got intense about it.
Oh my God. Oh my God. That's the person, man.
Yes.
So driven. Like, nope. And believe it or not, we were to the door. I said, okay, we said, no, you got another 35 seconds. Let's go. I said, 35 seconds for God's sake. Said, nope. We're gonna.
She told me to ask you how going to the gym was going. So
I
is
know.
that going well for you?
Yeah, I'm
Good.
doing it. I'm doing it. 2 nights a week so far, but
Yep.
I'm doing it. It's working. But as you said, it's a progress, and you have to believe that if I'm not healthy, nothing around me would work well.
Yeah. I don't love physical things. I don't love working out. I just don't. I like sitting on my back porch and drinking scotch. That's what I love.
And smoke a cigar.
It's a long story.
You
I
got to
can't.
smoke cigar with me.
So my mom, her mom died of lung cancer.
Oh, okay.
And so my mom, from the moment we popped out of the womb, I'm pretty sure the first thing she said was, "I love you." And the second was, "If you ever smoke anything, I will kill you myself." And to this day, I believe that. Like, I'm 42 years old and I'm terrified my mother is going to pop up and just murder me if I smoke anything. So I've never had a cigar, but I know I would love it. I love things
scotch?
you can get
Oh my
nerdy
God.
about.
It's
Yeah.
just, once in a while.
So I don't love the good physical habits, but my purpose, again, this goes to back, it changes everything. I know that if I incorporate good physical rhythms in my life, I'm going to lead myself better, which means I'm going to lead other people better.
I have a question for you. You talk about the leadership in organization from the top,
Mm-hmm.
and then how you're going to go down the ladder. But how we can synchronize the individual within the organization? They have different characters. And,
They
it
do.
happens with me, like with my staff. Okay, how can I make this work as a leader? That I
Yeah.
know a person, John is just understanding Blake is understanding John.
Yeah.
Even they have different characteristics, they have different attitude, they have different goals, but are their purpose? It's just because the whole purpose. Don't you think it's very challenging?
It is, but a couple things. One, that is the work of the leader at the top, is to say, who are we? What does it mean to be
As
a
an
part of this
organization.
organization? Where are we going? And then get everybody bought into that. But then it's helping them with the tools individually to be able to communicate well, to be able to work on this together. I told you earlier, we were talking about the idea of these personality assessments that we do. That gives people the tools to then go, oh, I know how to do this well because I know who they are. I know what this person across from me is afraid of. I know how they communicate. I know what they look like when they're really healthy and really unhealthy. Changes how you approach everything. I had a meeting the other day with a leader who's having to demote somebody. That's a hard conversation. And I said, so what's your approach to that conversation? He said, I'm going to go in and try to figure out what the hell they're doing. Why can't they do better? I'm disappointed in them. And so I pulled up that person's personality assessment. I said, okay, here's the problem. I said, that person's core fear is a loss of relationship. And so if you go in hard, they are immediately going to shut down. You're probably going to lose an employee. I said, if you go in and you start with, hey, I want you to know we're going to have a hard conversation, but that doesn't mean I don't love you. That doesn't mean I don't want you on this team. I do want you on this team, but there's some stuff we got to work on. And if you start with that establishment that, hey, we're safe, we have peace, we have relationship here, they're more likely to hear what you say. Those little nuances matter so much.
That's what I think most of the leaders don't get to understand, that little things.
Yes. And it is truly the little things. That's why when I start working with somebody, literally the first thing they do is those assessments, because I need to understand how to lead them. And based on what their fear is, based on the stories they're telling themselves, I'm going to customize my leadership to them. I'm going to customize my communication to them. And when I say I've led badly, the way I used to lead was I would just lead out of the way I wanted to lead and the way I would like to be led. And the problem is it wasn't customized for the 10 different employees I had, who were probably, out of 10 employees, probably 5 to 6 different personality types. And so the more I started to understand this, the more I started to go, okay, what does it look like to lead a person with that personality type? I'm going to approach this differently. And the more I did that, the more I started to see some amazing things happen.
We like it was last week. I visited a big company and like a tech company, and I met with the CEO, and I immediately felt the disconnection between that person with the whole company.
Yeah.
And then I look at everybody else; they were disconnected from each other.
Yeah.
It was a freaking pattern, man.
Yeah.
I saw it, and I told my staff, guys, do you see that?
Yeah.
And it was so obvious that, as you said, it comes from the top, and then it's like a virus. It goes through the organization and make everybody disconnect. Like all your body part is just And it was so obvious. And say, okay, big company, they're gonna crash and burn. How is gonna just run this goddamn thing?
And the thing is, most leaders show up every day. They are focused on what are we doing. And the problem is you're going to go do a thing and you're going to do it in this direction. And then this person's going to do their thing, which goes in this direction. This person's doing this thing over here. And we're all moving like this out. And at the end of the day, what that does is creates a lot of tension. It creates a lot of, like, if we're moving in different directions, there's now tension there. There's stress. There's going to be problems. This is a little nerdy, but the second law of thermodynamics, essentially what it says is everything is naturally moving towards disorganization. Everything just gets disorganized over time. If y'all use this room, we move stuff around, we set things up, but we never touched anything and cleaned it up, it's going to be disorganized. And so our organizations are all naturally becoming disorganized unless there's leadership that comes in and says, no, we're going to push it back into shape here. We're going to make sure that we're all moving in the same direction. And if all an organization or a leader ever thinks about is what are we doing, they're going to do 1,000 different things in 1,000 different directions, and deal with the stress of that.
I think most of the startups are failing right now. Believe it or not, it's a bad startup founder or where they're going, because it's not all about the product. It's about the people.
It's not. It absolutely is people. Healthy teams, thriving teams, they can show up and do literally anything. They can achieve anything. And so when you start thinking about startups, you have to start thinking about, how am I going to build a thriving team? Not just what is the product, not what is the offer that's going to get people excited, not what's the new innovative technology. Who's the team that's going to do this? And how do I make sure we thrive? And part of that thriving is sustainability. Most of what I run into with the startups that I work with is there is not any sustainability built in. We are going to run 1,000 miles an hour for this short period of time so that we can make as much as we can, like build something fast. The problem is the burnout rate's insanely high. A thriving team is not filled with burnout people. And so if we're running in a way that is going to burn our people out, we're ultimately setting ourselves up for failure. And I think that's why every business that fails, that's why. The stats on business failure are insane. Over the first decade, 96% of businesses fail.
Wow.
That's crazy. And the interesting part I think about that is that every business problem in the world is solvable. Like every problem has been solved by someone. And so it's possible to create successful businesses. The factor at the middle of all that is ourselves as leaders and our own health. And the minute we can't keep showing up to find solutions, we're out. We're done. Our organization is done. Our people are done. And so we're at the center of all of that. And that's where our health really is that most important factor for success. It just is.
I'm sure I'm going to just change the topic a little bit. I'm sure you heard that everybody this day, they want to be entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You hear that. I hear that every day.
Yeah.
And do you have any advice for people that really, they said, I want to be my own boss, I want to be an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. Do you have any advice for them as far as, self-awareness, or as you said, know your purpose, what you're going to do?
Yeah. Don't do it. I run into people all the time with that exact conversation of, I want to be my own boss. I want to control my own schedule. Great. Don't start a business. You will no longer control your schedule. You will not really be your own boss. You're now signing up to have 1,000 bosses. Like it's insane. But no, I think if you really do want to own your own thing, you have to believe and understand that you are meant to do that. that you were created to do that, because it is not the most fun journey in the world. It's exciting,
Very
and it's
exciting.
thrilling at times, but you are going to get knocked down all the time. And just like the Captain America talk, like my son asked me one time, I was talking about some kind of a business problem. I don't know if it was cash flow or payroll or whatever it was. And I described it as getting knocked down. And he goes, Dad, do you like getting knocked down? And I said, no. And he said, well, it seems to happen a lot. I said, yes, it does. It happens every single day. I said, but if you really want to do this, you have to love getting back up. You never have to love the pain of getting knocked down, but you have to love getting back up. You finish that hard day and you just sit there and you kind of breathe out a little and you go, hey, we made it another day. You have to have that drive. And every bit of that has to come from that well of health. You have to make sure that you are taking care of yourself, because eventually that runs dry. And man, I have been there. It's the first business we started, 90, 100 hours a week was normal for about 4 years. And I just 7 days a week, just grinding all the time. And what I found is that is not the way to success. That is absolutely a path.
What
to
made you
burnout.
to change?
I didn't want to lose my family. One of the hardest moments of my life was sitting on my parents' back porch in 2010, having my entire family, my mom, my dad, my wife, my kids in the house, just looking across at me going, hey, you might need to go get a job because you're failing. That was huge, to understand that despite doing all this for them, I was damaging them, that I was not showing up as a good version of me, because no matter how much money we made or didn't make, the version of dad they got was the version that would blow up at the smallest provocation. At the littlest thing, he would blow up. A dad who wasn't engaged, a dad who said he loved his kids but didn't really demonstrate it. I didn't want to lose that. And so it was worth finding a better way. That 90 hours a week is not worth my family. It's just not. And it doesn't matter. And by the way, the business was never wildly successful. Even if it had been, it still wouldn't be worth it.
What kept you going then?
The idea that I had to find a way to do this that didn't cost me everything, but also I could find a version of success. And really everything we do today with Forward Partners.
Self-satisfaction, you know?
Yes, self-satisfaction, purpose, caring for myself. I had to learn that rest is an investment. It is not a waste of time. And yet I think most times we believe and we're taught that rest is just a waste, that success is found only through the grind and the hustle. And it's just not.
I'm so happy you said that, because I always tell my friends, I tell my wife too, or I tell my staff that if you don't taking care of yourself, how are you going to taking care of the people around
100%.
you or people you love?
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to happen.
Which is a truth that most leaders will acknowledge. But then if you look at their rhythms and you look at their choices, they don't live it out. And I had to find a way to live it out. And so everything we teach today, like we wrote all of our own curriculum. I'm weird. I can't just be like the John Maxwell certified guy. Like I got to create my own. And so, so everything we created was literally how I learned to lead myself out of burnout, how I learned to defeat it on a regular basis. The tools that I equip people with through our courses and our coaching and our teaching and all the speaking and stuff, all those tools I literally use every day. Every Saturday I get up, I have the tools that we've developed. We have this self-reflection exercise. We have these green light habits. We have work-life balance. Like I get up, I use all that myself. That's how I know it works. And so that's why when I go to leaders and talk to them about it, they can see that I know it works. They can see that I believe in it.
Yeah, you believe that.
And the more they do it, the more they see it works.
I can talk to you all day, man. I love, I really, really, genuinely, enjoy talking to you, but my last question is this. What brings Chad down?
What brings me down? My core fear, I'm an Enneagram 5, which is the investigator. My core fear is being inadequate. Anything that makes me feel even remotely inadequate, I will spiral. I really will. And that's why I stay in my lane. Like when it comes to leadership, I'm damn good at that. Pretty much everything outside of that lane, I'm not great at. And so I just,
and this is a self-awareness. This is a self-awareness. I'm talking to you. You got to know who you are. You really got to know who you are.
And so that anything that makes me feel inadequate, but really when I see other people suffering, when I see other people that don't have hope, and as a guy who I feel designed to bring hope and clarity, that brings me down a little, but then it excites me a little. I'm like, oh, I know how to help that person.
Mine is negative people, man. I have a severe allergy to negative people.
Do you find yourself when you're If you engage with social media a lot, do you find that week to be a rough one for you because of all the negativity?
No, I usually pick the good ones, and I just kind of ignore the negative.
Gotcha.
Like the negative people, especially negative environment.
Yeah.
Like if I was in a household that it was a negative, like my previous marriage or all that stuff,
Yeah.
or it's just I just start sweating. I can't. I don't know what it is because I'm a very optimistic, realistic, positive guy, and the negative is just gets me. I don't. It's just weakening me. I'm not saying that all negative people are bad. Maybe they have pain and all that stuff, suffering, but it's just something that brings me down big time.
Yeah.
Like I get depressed.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Maybe I should take your personality test.
I can help you figure all that out, my friend.
I swear to God, I gotta know that.
I'll leave a card for you.
Yeah, but Chad, thank you for being here, my friend.
This has been a pleasure. I love these conversations.
I know. I look forward for another chat about something else, whatever comes up. But
you and I both like talking, so I think the problem is we could do a 24-hour
podcast.
I know, and not run out of stuff. That would go bad.
But where people can find you, where can I ask you, for help? Where should I go?
Go to forwardpartners.net. That's the best place to go. It has all my contact information.
Your courses and everything.
All our courses, everything. How to sign up for coaching. These personality assessments we do. We do workshops now where anybody can sign up. And so that's the best place to kind of get connected with what we do. And from there, you'll find all our social stuff. Social-wise, I'm committed to giving away everything we teach for free. Just give all of it away. Teach. Give
That's
it because
the blessing.
It's nothing. It's nothing that you haven't heard before. It's just our spin on it. And so I want to give it away to everyone and help people lead themselves better. That's why we exist. I got another 40 years to do this. And the joke I always make is I want to die on stage at like 85 or 90.
I love your
just
mentality.
Yelling about leadership, just fall over dead. And so I got 4 decades to impact a lot of people. So yeah.
I love your mentality, man. But thank you, man. Thank you.
I appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for doing such a great job on this.